Ahoy, hoy. Welcome, friends. Say hello to Will Stand-in, Walter.
Walter!
Oh,
Oh,
Yay!
he totally misses his dad, but he's having a great time with Auntie Stanley. And I might not give him back. I might not give him back.
wow.
I knew
Look
it.
at that. Walter's
You-
basically started kissing you as soon as you said you might not give him back. I don't know what that means.
As soon
All right.
as you posted pictures on Twitter, I knew. I was like, this
Like,
is going to be a
And we're
throwdown.
we're already getting like way more social media content than we were before.
Exactly. Walter's on the Twitter.
yep. He is adorable. He is well behaved. I swear to God, I hadn't noticed this before because I haven't been walking a dog in my neighborhood yet. But the only other well behaved dogs in the neighborhood also have gay parents. I swear to God, all of the straight dog parents, their dogs are lunging, they're yipping, they're yapping. It is annoying as hell. But
It's really good that I don't live in your neighborhood because I would totally shatter that if I walked Rigel near another dog.
well,
I know,
little
Wow.
rat
totally
dogs
hetero.
notwithstanding.
Little
The little rat dogs can't help it, and it's
I
fine.
know.
Rigel's adorable.
He's insecure. Not his fault. He's
But we're not talking about dogs, although we should. We should do a salon just about Star Trek dogs. But tonight we're
many.
talking about season 4, but not the most recent season 4. We're talking about season 4 of Star Trek: The Next Generation because we are relevant and we are timely. We are talking about.
Only because we can't talk about season 4 of the original series. That's the only reason I'm tolerating this.
Oh,
So,
bummer. And that's our first tosser alert.
Oh, wow.
unless you talk about the animated series, that I suppose could be season 4.
Sure, we can take that.
whatever helps you sleep at night.
Yes. So we are getting in our time machines, or we're doing our time warp around a slingshot around the sun to 31/2 years ago, back to 1990 and 91. In past salons, we've talked about seasons 7, 6, 5, and now it is time to talk about season 4, which, as I was getting ready for this, I think might be my favorite season. There are some excellent episodes in seasons future, but as I'm sure our discussion will prove, this season is spectacular. And so we're going to deep dive into it. But before then, we, of course, must set an intention.
This is going to be easy. Well, it should be for most of us, I hope. So we're time traveling back to 1990 to visit season 4. So to set our intention, I just want to know, where were you in 1990? I can tell you I was 14 years old. I was in entering high school. Oh, I was in high school. Yeah, was I like a freshman-ish? But I was living in Jacksonville, Florida. I will accept condolence gifts for having spent my high school years there. And I had 3 really close friends that also enjoyed Trek. I've talked at length during other salons about one of them because she passed away a couple years ago, and it was sort of difficult at first and has become a thing that has just like added to my joy of Star Trek, that I got to share that with her, and that's like, it actually helped me process my grief, which is kind of weird, and we'll get into in another salon. But that was it. I was 14. I was living in Florida. I rag on living in Jacksonville so much, but it was kind of cool to go to high school 5 miles from the beach, because when I didn't feel like going to school, we all went to the beach. And I was a big old nerd enjoying season 4 of Star Trek as it aired. So where were you guys?
I was in New Jersey. I was 22. Is that right? Yeah. I was 22, and I was watching it with a friend. We were watching these shows. We would go over to, so I lived at my grandmother's house as I was going to school. And so we would come over, my friend would come over, and we would watch Star Trek together. And I distinctly remember that the horror of seeing the to be continued from the Best of Both Worlds Part 1. Dun 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 do 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 dun dun dun. It's like, how could you do this? I remember the shock of that, which is really something that people didn't understand. I don't know how, and I'm just sort of going on a tangent here. I don't know how anybody who watched The Next Generation when everything was available and didn't get to experience that. We've got 3 months until the first episode of season 4. That was a huge deal. That was right up there with the best of the best cliffhangers, right up there with Who Shot JR, all of them, right? What the heck happened, Mr. Warfire? Anyways, that's where I was.
Krista?
I was also 22, and I was in Charleston, South Carolina, attending the College of Charleston. And that's basically it. My free time was spent working at the Harris Teeter Flowers Department on the weekend and dancing on speakers in gay bars where we discovered poppers.
Cheers to all those things.
Cheers to that. And so I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I was not at that time. I am one of those people at that time that was not watching it as it was airing. So we didn't actually watch any TV while we were in school. I was carrying 21 credits because I wanted to get through school in 2 years because I was behind. So I wanted to squeeze 4 years into 2 years. So I was carrying a massive load. And then when I wasn't in school, I was working or dancing on a speaker with poppers. So like balance. It was life balance.
You know, I'm somewhat surprised, but also not surprised that the first one of these tonight comes from Krista.
Thank you.
Poppers are fun.
Congratulations,
Everybody
Krista.
loves streamers. Benji, where were you in 1990?
I was 8 years old.
Yes, I'm officially the youngest here. Ha! For once.
Had not discovered poppers yet. Had not discovered Trek yet. I wouldn't discover Star Trek for another couple of years when I was 10, and I came in around season 6. So, yeah, I was not living my full life yet.
Nice. I was but a wee 5-year-old lad, but I was discovering Star Trek because I was a nerd from the womb. Like day one, my earliest memories are nerdy memories. Watching episodes out of order. I have no idea what my first episode was. I used to think that the Excelsior was a galaxy class when I was young, because I was like, oh, it's just like a really big saucer that they're going over to get to the A, not realizing, of course, the timeline doesn't make any sense. But at a wee 5 years old, I was discovering my love of Star Trek. What a lovely time machine question, Trev.
Thanks. You were apparently
Stanley,
also
you
starting. You were also apparently starting your love of ship porn, because while you were getting ships confused, you were still
5
shipping
years
stuff.
old.
This is true.
Sorry,
I've
I kind of cut
always
you off.
love ships.
So who here did not have to suffer through that summer? I know, Krista, you suffered through that summer. I suffered through
No.
that summer.
Well, she didn't because she wasn't watching it.
I didn't.
Oh,
'cause
right.
I wasn't watching it. I watched it after.
Right.
Like not when they came out.
So am
I
I the
totally
only one who
suffered.
suffered through that summer?
No, I suffered.
Okay.
I was suffering along with you.
All right, good.
We were commiserating just from different parts of the East
A
Coast.
distance.
Yes.
'Tis true. All right. Well, our intentions are set. You all know the drill by now. We are going to give the floor to Trevor. He is going to name the episode. He is going to describe the episode. We're going to give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways. Some episodes we'll have commentary on. Some of them we won't. We'll see if we can keep this stream to 2 hours or less, or until the audience ditches us, and then I want to go to bed. Because if I'm not getting likes, then I am not living. I live in LA now. I need the validation of strangers. But also I don't, because I just love this and I love hanging out with you guys. So let's get into our thumb wars.
Someone's having way too much fun with their graphics passing.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Wow.
As reluctant as I was to go with the name Thumb Wars, I found that video on Canva, and it was originally a neon green, and I was like, oh, this is hideous, but I like the thumbs. It's the only one that makes sense. And then I discovered how to fix the colors. So now, and then I gave it some somber wartime music, and now we get to have our Thumb Wars.
No, but I would just argue, though, Stanley, that it really shouldn't be called Thumb Wars. It should be called Thumb Trek, because this is a Trek thing, not a Wars thing. Anyway, go ahead. So
Thanks for stopping by, Ken.
Trevor, do you want to explain your name again?
Hi.
No, I don't. I feel attacked. And no, I'm kidding. No, but 1, 2, 3, 4, I declare a thumb war. We're in season 4.
No, I
There's
get
so many fun things that are happening right now.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
I had to pause. So I'm glad you guys were vamping a little bit, because I had to add a quote to the quote book, which is, "This is hideous, but I like the thumbs."
That's a great quote. This
It's going in the book. It's going on the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Epic.
It's going to be everything. It's going to be everything you ever wanted and more.
And more. It's going to be a 3X T-shirt.
It's just going to be a dress.
Fit
Just
an
cinch it.
elephant.
Yeah.
Just cinch it with a belt. It's fine.
Right.
Like
It's gonna be a cape. It's gonna be a cape, is what it is.
Ooh, capes. Okay, so
Okay.
are we ready? Are we ready?
Let's do
Season
it.
4,
Yep.
episode 1. Everybody work out your thumbs. You ready to go? I was doing thumb exercises.
Exercise.
Yep.
Does it?
Great, here we go.
All right.
Episode 1, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 2. Kidnapped and assimilated by the Borg, Captain Picard is trapped aboard their ship. At the helm of the Enterprise, Riker is faced with a momentous decision. That's a really shitty way of describing this episode. By
It
the way.
is a really shitty way.
Are you reading from Wikipedia or Memory Alpha?
I'm actually, because both of those are a little too long for me to actually. I'm reading the snippets on Google. So if you actually search the season on Google, it gives you like a 2 or 3 sentence recap. Most of them are delightful. That one's really happy. But I think we all know what happens in The Best of Both Worlds Part 2. The entire episode revolves around Shelby's promotion to full commander. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't. It set her up in a most delightful way in episode 1 and in part 1, and then just sort of ignores her in episode 2. Which is tragic, because she was a brilliant character who was maybe killed by the Borg later. We don't know. Terry says no, but maybe. Anywho, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways. How are we feeling? Do we hate it? Do we love it? Say more.
So this. I'm going to make a comment here first, because
That's right. That's allowed.
if you look at it by itself, it's one way to look at it. If you look at it as comparison to part 1, that's another way to look at it, right?
Mhm.
So, as a standalone episode, if there wasn't a part 1, I would probably consider it a little bit differently than how I feel about it, since there was a part 1. So, what do you know what I mean? So I think it's a weak episode in comparison to part 1, but it's a good episode as a standalone. You know what I
You're
mean?
speaking Trevor's language.
This is, yeah, you are, because I generally am not fond of 2-parters in Trek until we get to DS9. But the only thing I will say about Best of Both Worlds Part 2 is that it doesn't live up to its part 1. But as an episode on its own, there's action, there's drama, there's conflict resolution, there's a degree of intensity. The pace is pretty good. So just as an episode, it's hard to separate it from one. But as an episode, it's not bad.
Right.
So I could see somebody saying it's a sideways. I
Yeah.
enjoy it, and I think it was a good way to start the season, though it doesn't resolve the cliffhanger in the most epic way. It was just like, oh, it didn't work. That was sort of not satisfying.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, if I compare it to part one, I'd give it a sideways. If I
Mhm.
take it as a standalone and kind of put part one out of my mind, I would give it a up. Right. So that's sort of the weird thing here with this one.
Okay. But since we were evaluating them on their own,
Right.
I'm
So,
calling it
Then
an
it's
up.
up.
yeah, an up.
We're 5 ups.
Though still not as good as the first part.
Absolutely. Anything we would do to fix it, tweak it? I can tell you
I
one
think-
thing, and it wasn't my idea, but there's one thing that always stands out, and there's and I forgive me if you happen to see this, whichever podcaster said this, it was not me, but someone else came up with this. There's the scene where Picard as Locutus says sleep data, and Beverly says he's exhausted. And then Data says, yes, but I believe he's attempting to express a course of action, not a mode of feeling. Those lines should have been switched.
Mhm.
Data should have been the one who interpreted what he was saying literally, and Beverly should have been like, yeah, not what I think he meant. And that would have,
I agree.
because that was a little,
That one thing, it's still, because I as I was conducting my life this week, I played it in the background. I played all of the episodes in the background just to kind of refresh. And when I was doing whatever I was doing, that scene came on and she said that, and I like stopped and sort of went, that just doesn't even make any sense. It's not consistent with the character, and it makes her look sort of not competent,
Yeah.
which I think
Yeah, that always bothered me too.
undermines the character. She's very competent, and she's at her best in fraught situations. She's she doesn't like veer into hysteria. She just gets the job done. So yeah,
well,
I agree
and
with that.
as one of Starfleet's premier diagnosticians, to have her say, oh, he's sleepy, just sounds really stupid.
Yeah,
like
it just sounds
that's-
stupid.
That's your diagnosis? He just needs a nap? Like,
It's like yeah. And
she may as well have
I
told us
just
he was
didn't
cranky.
like the second one as much as I liked the first one. The first one just had twice the amount of everything and
I hear you.
done
Well,
in
and
such
keep
a
in mind,
fantastic
as
way.
we've talked, yeah, I mean, as we've talked about before, the writer of the first one was planning to leave, so they
Right.
wrote this. They wrote themselves into a gigantic corner, and they just basically were like, "We don't care." Then they had to figure out how to fix it, and from that point of view, I think that they did the best they could to resolve a really tough situation. And but I do think having the idea that Picard is waking up and he's that I completely agree with you, Trev. That whole line, he's exhausted, is just dumb. And for Data to say perhaps, but I mean, it's like, shut up, Data. Let the doctor be the doctor. Anyway,
Any other thoughts before we move on to episode 2? All right, here we go. Season 4, episode 2. I find this episode largely flawless. Spoiler alert. Family.
I love that you're gonna
I'm
be.
gonna do it. I'm gonna do
Yep.
it. I don't care. First of all, these episodes are 30 years old. If I'm swaying your opinion by saying that, then I am far more powerful than I realize.
Here's how I think you should vote. Episode 2.
is
Right.
flawless.
Who wants to argue with me?
Yeah.
No. Okay, I'm going to read the really bad description on Google. While docked for repairs at an Earth station, because that's the most important part of the episode, the crew has an opportunity to visit with their families, an experience that is particularly painful for Captain Picard. It's technically
is-
part 3 of a 2-parter. I mean, I think it just makes a natural bookend to the Best of Both Worlds saga.
Yeah, that's a really bad description.
It's super bad.
A family visit.
I
It's
sent
like,
you the TV guide ones I put in the chat are actually pretty good.
But
I wanna take a look.
I mean, Sergei and Elena Rozhenko, come on.
Yeah.
Wes getting to at least hear from his father, and the Will Wheaton was very critical of his own performance in a review that he wrote himself about the episode. But I'm sorry, his goodbye dad gets me every time. Like that, I thought he did a fantastic job in that scene,
Yeah.
with very little to no dialogue. Thoughts, feelings, opinions?
I agree. This is a practically flawless episode. It not only wraps up the best of both worlds saga, but it ties in stuff that Worf went through. And I am not a Worf fan, y'all know, but I love his adopted parents. And the stuff with Beverly and Wesley was lovely. So just past traumas, not just the most recent past trauma being dealt with through family, was just lovely. Great episode all around.
All right, folks, family.
So this
thumbs up.
episode,
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
Ken, go ahead.
for me, this episode was not too far off from when my father passed away in 1986 suddenly. And so that scene with Will saying goodbye, Dad, struck me incredibly hard. You know, just being a few years away from that moment in my life, and still, you know, reminds me every time I watch that episode, it takes me back to my mindset just a few years out from when my father passed away. So that has a special meaning. This episode has a special meaning. I think that I agree. I think the episode is incredibly strong. The guest cast is incredibly strong. The episode is destroyed by Star Trek Generations, in my opinion, but I think it's a great episode as it is, and I give it definitely a thumbs up.
I think that the thing that strikes me about the episode is that everybody that's having something to do with family, their family exists in real time. They can engage with them at will. And then you have Wesley, who's trying to engage with somebody who's, you know, gone past his due date. And it's a very limited way to be able to connect to somebody that's no longer in his life. And he doesn't have the option to go and visit and all of that. And for me, I really felt like that sort of made, I mean, I understand it was really kind of, it was a build up to the mud fight and, you know, Picard breaking down and all of that. But for me, the saddest story of what was offered of all the plots was Wesley's story. Because it's not like, you know, Jack saying goodbye back. It's just, you know, it's not interactive in real time. It's fabricated. And you know, it's one of those things that continues to be fabricated as part of his storyline. It's never, you know, and we'll get into this later in one of the later episodes that I have something to say about, but there's never a moment when you observe him being told something from somebody that, you know, this is how I connected with your father, and these are these things that
him
happen.
Wesley, you mean, Krista?
Yeah.
You mean him Wesley?
Yeah. You know, it's always, you know, they're mentoring him, but nobody's, you know, there's only one other person on the ship that could actually give him insight to his father over and above what his mother can provide. And, you know, we don't get that. And I think they tried to rectify that in Picard 3 with the story that facilitates the whole plot device for the space babies. But, you know, they never did that with Wesley, and they had numerous seasons in which to just, you know, throw something in there. And so to me, that's the saddest thing. If I were to change that, I almost rather there had been some kind of additional scene where Beverly, tells him something about his father or something relevant to the moment that he can relate back to a person that he, doesn't really know very much about through his own personal experience. But that's not the way that works. It's not the way these shows work. But if I were to change something, I would have added a little something in that regard.
Did they not do any of that?
He watches this thing and
go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was done. Go
It was
ahead.
just it's not is it this season? What's the episode? The final episode where Wesley says goodbye.
Yeah, it's in this one.
Again, with
This
fabricated,
season.
fabricated traveler Jack, pseudo Jack. Don't follow in my footsteps. I don't think they knew what to do with Wesley after a while. I don't think they knew what to do with that character. It was a good idea, but
My only criticism of Family is that the descriptions constantly refer to Worf's adoptive parents, and I'm like, no, they're just Worf's parents.
right.
The distinction should be made for his biological parents, not for his adoptive parents are just his parents. But that's like a soapbox that I get on all the time and should probably not. So thumbs. What are our thumbs on Family? I'm a thumbs up. Cool. Episode 3, I will refrain from sharing my opinion. Brothers. Data begins to malfunction and takes control of the Enterprise. Meanwhile, a young passenger who's dangerously ill needs treatment at a nearby starbase. I don't know that this description's any better, Ken.
Yeah.
So, yes, Data receives a signal that turns out it's from Dr. Sung. It takes over his basic functions. He hijacks the Enterprise. Poor Willie Potts. Why did I just remember that kid's name? Is lying in sickbay, very ill. That's just weird. I don't know how my brain did that. Everybody's freaked out. Can't control the Enterprise. Data beams down and plays 3 parts. What do we think? I'm kind of the same.
Yeah, for me, this is just the beginning of serialized story arcs now starting to apply to 2 characters, Picard and Data, because forever after this, they continue to build on those characters.
Well, and Worf.
Not so much, because Worf, really, if you break Worf's story down in TNG, it's about adoptive parents. It's about the distinction. It's about trying to reclaim a culture he is inherently tied to that rejected him for one reason or another. He's never searching out the human side of it. He always wants the Klingon side. It's not until he's involved in other series within the franchise that changes. I'm not familiar with those, so I can't really speak to it. But the Worf-centric stories always kind of, I easily fast forward through those because it's the same. It's the same story. It's the same. He wants to be accepted in a community that does not accept him. So. It's like it's over and over and over again. And yes, it is a tangent, but for this episode, it really begins the whole, it's not unusual to see Data in movies, in Picard, in TNG, and he's playing like 16 different characters. And for me, this is kind of when it starts. That
on its own,
the writers have realized they've got a gold mine in this guy. He is a huge fan favorite. So we're going to double down on his storylines. Picard is a fan favorite. We're going to double down on his. And this is when that starts. And they get the somewhat serialized treatment in terms of story arc versus the other characters that begin to behave in very inconsistent ways, very subtly.
Right.
It seems like they can't seem to get on the same level. They're not as fan favorite. They're not as appreciated.
Right, but
But
if you
the
look at
episode
these
Episode Brothers, we saw Assoon, Lore, and Data malfunctioning and seeing more of what that actually looks like, and so we will vote on Brothers. What were our votes? I'm just trying to keep us moving along.
No, I get it. But if you think also about, as we say this, these 4 episodes, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1 and Part 2, Family, and Brothers, think about those 4 things, the Borg, Picard, Chateau Picard, and Lore, and Data, and Sung. You take those 4 episodes, and that springboards basically into a lot of the whole plot for all 3 seasons of Star Trek Picard from those 4 episodes.
Yeah, I think the only thing I really
Some
would like
might
to
say
criticize
overdone.
Yeah, the only thing I would really like to criticize about the episode is that it's it starts really, really strong and then just kind of fizzles, in my opinion. But episode 4, I have very strong feelings, and I'm going to keep from sharing them. Suddenly Human. An away team finds a Talarian ship in distress, has a crew of teenagers, one of them a human, who shows signs of severe abuse. So this is Chad Allen guest starring as Jono / Jeremiah Rosa, and Picard being thrust into a role for which he is not comfortable, and the kid tries to kill him, and there's ice cream involved, and we just send him back to his captors. How do we feel?
I hate this episode. I really don't.
Well,
like this
so
episode.
I would
The
give it a
psychedelic
sideways.
hammock.
Yeah.
The
I mean, it's
psychedelic
obviously a thumbs
hammock
down.
with the hard metal music. I mean, come on, man.
I think it was a good
Staying in
concept.
Picard's
Like, yeah, I think it was just like not well executed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think it was an interesting premise to say, you know, Chad. First of all, I thought Chad Allen was good, as you know,
he was great.
Was good in the role.
Yeah, it's not the
And
actor's fault.
the idea of Picard ultimately saying, you know, he thinks of the kid thinks of this guy as his dad. He raised him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Who are we to? I mean, I think it's a very interesting dilemma, and I know Trev, you probably have tons of thoughts about that. We could talk about another day, but very interesting point of view this episode raises. Not a good, a right one necessarily, not a wrong one necessarily, but an interesting one.
It brought up great, compelling conversation for another salon. But yeah, my issue of letting him go back to his captors is the thing that I'll never quite get over.
Yeah.
So we were did we rate that one? We all hate it.
Yeah. That's my one thing about
sideways.
it. That is my one. There were little things throughout that I'm like, oh, that's annoying, but like the whining, the literal whining. But yeah, the decision at the end is just like, what? I think for every time I watch it, I'm like, what do you mean he gets to go back with it? Just wild.
Yeah. Also, weirdest name for another character, a human character in Star Trek, Connaught Rosa. Names their child Connaught. What the hell is that?
They cannot come up with another name.
She just cannot.
They cannot.
I would love to, but I cannot.
Boo. Boo.
Listen, the whole thing is called Thumb Wars. It's not going to get any more clever.
I'm with you, Trev. I was there with you.
That's as clever as I'm getting tonight. And
All
I'm
right,
just
moving on.
drinking, so it's only going to get worse. Episode 5. We can do this. Remember me. People aboard the Enterprise are vanishing at an alarming rate, and no one, except Dr. Crusher, Bev Alert, has any memory of their existence. It also sees the return of the Traveler.
Groomer. Yeah.
I hate that because the actor is lovely. Eric did a fantastic job in that very, very bizarre part that was written for him. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with Remember Me, and I'm a ginormous fan. Thoughts, feelings, emotions?
If there's nothing wrong with me,
there
there must be something wrong with the universe.
I'm curious, and it's never answered in the episode, but just how long did it take them to figure out that Beverly was no longer on the ship? Like that she was missing, because the thing
Nobody pays attention to her anyway.
She disappears. Wesley leaves the room, turns back, and is like, something's different. And it's like, yeah, your fucking mother just disappeared. Like, was it 6 hours? Was it past dinner? Did she not, show up for breakfast croissants? What was the clue?
Tap dancing
Somebody
lessons.
give me the clue of when you fucking figured it out, because
It's
she's
funny
in
you
this,
should-
like, warp bubble.
It's funny you should mention clues because we're going to get there. Oh, look what I just did. Okay.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
what are our thoughts? I think everybody's very positive about Remember Me, correct? Oh,
Yeah, I think it's good. And that
I-
All right, I'll-
I love
your point,
I love
Krista,
that
is
one.
basically the speed of plot argument, right? They
Yeah.
had to. It's like, yeah.
I think my problem with this episode, I think, is the same problem I have with the last one, if I'm remembering them correctly, which is that I don't think either of them have a B plot, and my least favorite TNG episodes are ones that don't have a B plot because they can get a little tedious. So that's why it gets like a side from me, is that it's a little long and tedious, and it needed a B plot. I get why they couldn't have one in this episode, because it would have ruined the whole thing.
But good call out by Krista. The B plot could have been them looking
Yeah.
for like it,
Yeah.
and us trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like, how is
Yeah.
she missing people, but people are missing her?
And I think the reason they didn't do it is because they wanted to preserve the mystery of it.
Yeah.
Which is so it makes sense.
Sure.
I get it. But I think in this day and age, they probably could have done it as like a 35-minute episode or something like that, and tightened it up. But yeah, that's my only issue with that.
Also,
Episode-
just for me as a Bev head, the final full body hug.
So if you guys can hear me, I
Thank
can
you.
hear you.
Full
So I'm going to try to
body
figure out
hug.
what's going on.
I can hear you.
Mhm.
Ken.
We can hear him, but he can't hear us telling him that we can hear him.
Love it.
And see, this is fun. This little thing we have going on right now.
entertaining.
Waiting
This
for
is
the
fun.
after
Wait,
storm.
No, the
Does this
full
mean that
body-
Does this mean that Ken just disappeared? Oh my God,
Oh my
He's a-
god!
Ken's in a warp bubble.
What else can you do?
Ken's in a warp bubble, and we noticed in seconds. And
Remember
that's
me.
that is the. That is
Well,
the
he is a
level of
white man, so he's more important. Kidding for the audience.
Are we ready for the? Well, it's not okay. It's maybe it's not controversial. Maybe I should stop setting these up so much. Maybe, probably not. Episode 6, Legacy. On the planet Turkana 4, birthplace of the late Tasha Yar. They always have to say it that way. Like, even in dialogue, they say it that way.
The rape planet.
So yeah, on planet Rape 4, 2 warring factions hinder the away team's rescue of a marooned Federation crew, none of whom have to worry about being raped because they're boys.
They're boys.
Which is another whole don't even.
I mean, we don't know that.
You know,
It didn't seem to be a problem.
This is the thing. I don't like this episode. You can miss me with your dollar store, Linda Hamilton. You can miss me entirely with this idea that you clearly, as a franchise, have realized that you fucked up when you allowed Denise Crosby to leave, when that character just. So we introduce a sister, we introduce a daughter, but we can't bring Tasha Yar back. And for me, this episode is trying to in some way or another bring her back, but not her. We're going to bring a sister back, and she's, some Wish.com Tasha Yar, and I can't with it. She's a bad actress. It's a bad actress. Nice. I mean, she's good with the full camel toe. I mean, she can sport. provides ample camel toe, but the acting is, I mean, if you're going to do camel toe, at least distract me with your acting. That's not what happened.
I just appreciate what Joel pointed out, which is that his biggest concern about the Yar family is what happened to their cat.
Yeah.
But yes, the only cool thing about this episode, in my opinion, is that we learned that there are matching phaser belts for every outfit. So I'm a thumbs down. What's everyone else think?
So I am a thumb sideways. I like the pre-title sequence where Data, Data shows Riker that his little trick is fake in the poker stuff. I thought that was a pretty good pre-title sequence. The rest of it, meh.
Very good. Moving on to episode 7, Reunion. We wanted this episode, but we didn't love the way that it ended. Kim Peck, the dying Klingon leader, asks Picard to find which of the two rivals for his position has been poisoning him, and Worf has a reunion with his former mate. That's all it says. It doesn't have her name. And their son that he didn't know he had. Like that feels like an important part to put into the recap. So little Alexander arrives. Kalar is back in all of her incredibly tall, beautiful wig-wearing fierceness. I'm sad that she died, but
Yeah.
I was a pretty big fan of the episode. I'm not a huge fan of Klingon politics, but this one got me. I don't know why. It just kind of worked.
I have
Because of
thoughts.
Pilar.
Yes.
Kalar's
Because of
two
Kalar.
episodes. Kalar's two episodes. She was more of a character to me than Worf was through the entire series.
Yes.
And when Susie
And
Paxton
more of a
came-
parent to Alexander.
and when
than-
she came back as Lady Q in Voyager, the play that they had on that one little scene where she says, "I always liked Klingon women." I thought that was beautiful. So
I love her. I hated that her death was a device for Worf. Because I don't like women being used for male characters generally. Although, in this particular case, as a guest star, it was at least not necessarily fridging. And the cultural significance made some sense, and like the dueling of Duras at the end because of what he did. Like this is the one time that I'm Team Worf, because listen, I would have blown up that entire ship if I had discovered Kalar that way. And I hate Alexander, but I hate that he had to go through that. Like that poor child. I love Kalar, and I wanted justice for her, and I'm glad that Worf, in the Klingon sense, delivered it.
And I know that one of their drives was to always distinguish Alexander as looking very Klingon, but being sort of quote unquote raised as a human,
Right.
or from his mother's human half. But I always thought it would have been more powerful if he had howled alongside of Worf at Kalar's body. He was clearly being raised on the Klingon homeworld or around other Klingons. That ritual seems like a thing you would just pick up on. And it wouldn't have distinguished him as not human or having humanness. I think it would have just been very powerful. That's just me.
Yeah, and he Alexander shows interest in Klingon stuff like throughout the series. Like he's not like totally anti-Klingon. So
Yeah.
there's that. I worship Susie Plaxton. I wish Kalar had been a recurring character, and it's like a crime that she wasn't. But it was a phenomenal death scene, and I agree. Like it was the sort of like the only like Klingon Civil War episode that I like as well. I love Kim Peck. Kim Peck is my chancellor. He was murdered.
The longest serving chancellor in Klingon Empire history.
Kim Peck was a badass.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that she had killed Duras. Like, how interesting could that have been if Gowron became chancellor through Kalar defending herself?
Kill Worf,
Yeah.
make Susie Plaxton security officer.
Yes.
I'll take it. Okay, thumbs. Where are our thumbs, people? Show me your thumbs. Episode 8, Future Imperfect. I have thoughts. After an aborted away mission, Riker awakens in sickbay to an aging Dr. Crusher. That is not what happens. Who explains that a long dormant virus has wiped out his memory of the past 16 years. Yeah, so Riker wakes up 16 years later, not to an aging Dr. Crusher. She just has like some gray streaks and a fun new updo.
Older than he remembered is the
Right. I think that's what I meant.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would have been a nice way of describing it versus
Yeah.
the way that whoever
an
wrote this.
aging Dr. Crusher. Come on, writers.
Yeah, it makes it sound like the doors opened and she walked in like full on Pulaski. Like it's
She's
like, no.
she's in that cave. Yeah.
He's in the
She-
deadly
she
years.
kind of had Pulaski hair
Yeah,
Yeah.
with that
She had
curtain rod.
some of that Pulaski chicken soup she found in the replicator menu. I'm a big fan just because I thought this was such a fun departure from what TNG had done up to this point and what Trek had done up to this point. Also, Chris Demetral, the young man that played Jean-Luc in the alternate reality, 14-year-old Trev had a little crush on him, so that was fun to see him.
Yeah, and he was a very good actor. He was in what was the series? There was this
Yes, the one where he Dream On.
Everything's a Dream. Dream On. Is it Dream
Yeah.
On?
Yeah, all
Yeah.
of his dreams were like TV show clips and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't he play
No.
Wendy Malick's kid in a show as well?
He did. Yeah.
He did.
I don't know what he's doing these days. But
He's on
I
Instagram.
I have thoughts.
I mean, I don't know either.
Well,
Mike
I thought this was a
McMahon.
very-
Mike McMahon needs to bring back the Barash aliens.
yes.
Because that is season 1 busted down alien shit
Mhm.
that somehow found its way into season 4.
They found it in a warehouse. They were like, "Make it talk." Yeah.
That's
You
like
know
they
what?
found, we had to run to like the Spirit Halloween at the last minute.
My parents
What?
left me with Halloween decorations.
What
At all.
what I liked what I liked about it was that after seeing Picard 3 and then watching this, I thought it was really interesting how they showed that Riker, by comparison, was not a conditional guy. Like, he wakes up at 16 years, he's told he has a kid, and he's like, you understand he feels a duty of care to the kid. It's totally irrelevant to him, like how the kid got. He's not he's not hamstrung by what are the circumstances, how did this happen. He just understands that this kid is there and it's his responsibility. And it, when he ends up in sick bay, because the kid, we're going with that plot device, the kid gets sick, everybody's got to go to sick bay. So he ends up there, but it wasn't necessary to elicit some kind of care from him. And it's so fundamentally different character presentation than what we got in Picard, which was Picard finds out he has a kid, and his concern is, how did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? It's all about the circumstances and not the existence of the child. Leaves sickbay, disregards the child, then tells Riker that the entire thing is like irreconcilable and it can't be fixed. And it takes the same kind of plot device for him to feel some kind of emotion about this kid that's dying on a sickbay table. And so when I watched the show the first time without Picard, seasons even existing, I never noticed that. And this time watching it, I was like, oh, wow, that's really different. That's very different from my original interpretation of the show. Also, I think this season is kind of when you start seeing Frakes more in Riker. Like, there's a lot of Frakes swagger starting to come in. He's played him long enough that it's starting to get blurred between what is the character thing and what is an actual actor thing. And I'm there for it. I'll buy tickets and eat popcorn because he's genius in this entire season. Just the way he is great. But that was the thing that struck me as very interesting about this episode, that it really highlighted how really accepting and unconditional Riker really is when you look at it from the perspective of what we know now. And it follows through with Picard saying, you know, don't miss this opportunity. You need to talk to your kid.
Riker is,
I thought it was kind of
Riker is a much morally stronger, better, from the point of view of as a moral person and have with character and with strength. Riker is a stronger character than Picard.
yeah.
It just is throughout everything. And what I like about this episode is what you were saying, Krista, is that, you know, he doesn't try to figure it out. He just accepts and unconditionally loves. You say, this is my kid. It's my kid. I love you. You say, this is my wife. I have no memory of Min. Sad about it, but moves on. Right. And I also like with this episode, sort of the way that they sort of tease it and say, okay, it was the Romulans. And so it's like, okay, for a moment there, you think it's the Romulans, then it turns again. So it turns and then it turns. And I think that that's really good storytelling. And I think this episode is very, very strong. And I love the callback to 1001 SOS. So I think that was a
program.
Yeah.
To kind of
I
echo
also liked the very descriptive explanation as to what "shut up" means. Shut up. I'm sorry.
as in close your mouth and stop
As
talking.
in close your mouth and stop talking. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Can I get that as a ringtone? I need that as a ringtone.
Yeah,
I beg your pardon.
I think my
what if scenario.
yeah.
And like I love the show What If with Marvel. I would love a short Trek's version. I like a blatant rip off of What If for Star Trek. That would be one of my pitches if I was given free reign on a Trek show or a Trek project. What if scenario? What if Voyager didn't make it back? What if Jadzia didn't die? You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that's one reason why I love this episode is like, what is 16 years in the future going to look like? I think it's one reason why All Good Things works so well as a series finale, because we get to see this potential future and then go back to present day and hopefully avoid some of those things that we saw in that future. In this particular case, we get to see like, oh, Riker ends up with a kid. We have an Admiral Picard. We see that Romulan tensions have eased. Now it's all a ruse, but a lot of really interesting what if scenarios happening there. So for those reasons, it's a thumbs up for me.
Yeah.
I put a slightly more positive spin on the differences that were highlighted between Riker and Picard, only because for me, I enjoy, as a student of psychology, I enjoy seeing the trauma that both of them experienced with daddy issues manifesting very differently in both men. For Picard, he avoided parenthood. He was angry at it. He was just an angry person for a long time. With Riker, being a father almost came naturally. It was a thing that he embraced, and he was ready to do it again. And sadly, you know, lost the fictitious son and then lost a real son. And him being a father to his daughter is wonderful and adorable and all of those things. But him being such a cool dad is, again, the infusion of the Frakes that Krista was highlighting. So I love it for all that. And
That
as
reminds me, my only one down is at the end when he says to me, I'll call you Jean-Luc, or you'll always be Jean-Luc. Like, no, you're going to call him by his name.
it's straight up not his name.
See, I read that as down low shade. You'll always be Jean-Luc to me. Short,
You'll
bald, self-absorbed. I was like,
indistinguishable,
such a
like
backdoor smack.
You'll always
very
be the
difficult to place accent.
they have.
Exactly.
And as a Troy boy, I appreciate that we got to see Deanna do a different job in Starfleet as an admiral's attaché. That was kind of cool.
Diplomat Troy is the best Troy.
Yes.
Really is. Okay, episode 9. I have strong feelings and opinions. In honor of Wesley's acceptance to Starfleet Academy, Picard asks him to come on a mission to Pentaris 5. It's really important that we know that it's Pentaris 5 in the summary. But they're forced to make an emergency landing on a lifeless moon where Picard is critically injured in a rock slide. It's not exactly what happened. There was a device and a cave-in. Anyway, you were all there. You saw it. Thoughts, feelings, emotions?
This is the episode. It is my quintessential example when people try to claim that new Trek has plot holes and old Trek wasn't as bad and blah blah blah. I'm like, no. In what's this one called? Final Mission.
Final mission.
Final Mission. Like they forget that they have other shuttles. Like there is a massive plot hole in this episode, and that is that they forget that they have other shuttles. And just like I complain about sometimes in New Trek, I wish they had a line, just say the transporter's not working and fine, Arium can die.
The shuttle bay door is stuck.
Yeah, but like tell me something like because of the radiation we can't open the shuttle bays, or other missions are happening, whatever, but like we can't go after Picard because we're slow towing this thing. And this we have 3 massive shuttle bays, including the main shuttle bay we'll never see because of production costs. Like I need a line that says why we can't go after Picard, and
Or separate the ship.
Yeah, that we have tractor beams.
Good news. Turns out our starship is actually 2 starships. Like, we just kind of skip over that point. Also, I struggle with Will having shared how badly he was treated by production, and then to leave and then write an episode for him for his departure, and it's just not worthy of saying goodbye to a major character.
I do like that he had to science it. Like he had to science something in order to save the captain.
Yes, but he was doing it all on the Planet Hell set in a cave. So for you cave fans out there, this is 1/3 of this episode. And his mom's barely in it, and it doesn't. I don't know. It just kind of.
I have thoughts.
Yeah, it's kind of like.
I have thoughts.
They cut before your thoughts. They also cut like a really good bit of dialogue between the two of them that was really heartfelt. That I meant to watch before this, but maybe I will after. But there's an exchange that was cut that was really good and would have added a lot. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, maybe this is the dialogue that you're talking about, or I can hope that it's the dialogue. For me, if there was ever an episode where it would have been appropriate for Picard to impart to Wesley some meaningful exchange that he had regarding Wesley's father, this is the episode to have done that.
Right.
And so if I were to change anything in this episode, it would have been some anecdotal dialogue where Picard recognizes that, yes, he's been kind of a stand-in father figure for Wesley, and a number of things that Wesley has accomplished has been to garner his approval. But I think it would have been important for Wesley to know that, yes, I am proud of you, but your father, I knew your father very well. I loved your father. Your father would also be proud of you. The fact that they cut Beverly quite a bit out of this episode and only really offered yet another example of how, even in the most dire circumstances, she is capable of remaining focused on the task and getting shit done. This is kind of one of those episodes for me that highlights how sidelined she is as a parental figure for him, in lieu of all of the other male characters on the show, throughout the seasons previous to this. And I understand that teenage boys don't want to talk to their mother about everything, but just observationally, it's not unusual for boys to go to their mothers for advice. That's not extraordinary. It's not odd. And they just never did that. So that's one of the things that bugs me about the episode. Also, the failure to include something about his father. If there was ever an episode, this is the one that would be the episode to do it. And also, I would remind everyone that a cave fell on Beverly and she got up and walked away. So.
And Krista, I think you
Who's
just
a
helped
pussy?
I think you just helped me fix the episode, because
Okay.
we
That's
get
how I
rid
would
of
fix it.
we get rid of all of the Pentaurus 5, or not the Pentaurus 5, the radiation crap. Like, forget everything that happens on the Enterprise. So they're off on a thing, they crash, and they're like, oh no, we're not expected for 3 more days. No one's going to know we're here. We don't revisit the Enterprise again. What we revisit is Jack and Jean-Luc on the Stargazer when Jack dies.
Thank you.
We bring Beverly in flashbacks to Jean-Luc coming back, kind of like we saw in the one with the memory mind rape people, the Yulians, whatever episode that was.
So
So
their long hair.
but instead of it just being a nightmare, it's the conversations, it's all of that, and it's all that's happening while Picard's unconscious.
Yep.
And Picard wakes up talking to Beverly in the flashbacks. He's saying there are things about the event, because whatever happened on Stargazer that killed Jack, he doesn't remember everything that happened, because he was injured and this, that, and the other thing. Violations. Thank you, Michelle. Bonus points for that. At the end, Wesley saves the day. Picard wakes up, and as he's waking up, remembers that the last thing Jack said was, "Tell Beverly and Wesley that I love them."
Yes, exactly.
And he
Exactly.
sacrifices himself, and and Picard was both injured and traumatized, couldn't remember it enough to tell Bev, but wakes up and tells Wesley, "Your father's last words were that he loves you."
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's the
Rigel
perfect
loves it.
episode. It's the perfect episode to do it. And it's to me, it's such a glaring failure. It's like, it seems obvious. It seems like such an obvious, like, how are you in the writer's room not? So I don't know. I mean, what was the, Benji, what was the dialogue what was the exchange that was cut?
I don't remember, but it was. I think it kind of touched on that. I think it was also very short, but I don't think it's all that. So
Right.
it added something.
Okay, so
Look,
we should
sugar.
rate this before we spend an hour on Final Mission.
I like it.
Fair enough. I got a sideways.
I give it a sideways. It's not to me very memorable.
All right, then I'll give it
honestly.
an up because it doesn't matter. It's a sideways. I'm with Krista, but we're alone. Episode. It's okay. Listen,
It's always
if I gotta be
us.
alone, it's all good. Episode 10. Troy Boy. The Loss. While the Enterprise is swept into a gravitational wake of 2-dimensional life forms, Troy realizes. Fucking Ensign Brooks.
You are so wrong.
Troy realizes that her powers have left her. Again, who wrote this?
Well, she's like bewitched. She's lost her powers, right? So
Yeah, apparently. And
Yeah.
Ensign Brooks looked around for anything that would remind me of him. Anything. I've never heard someone pronounce the word anything that way before, and it's weird, and I have to repeat it for everyone that's listening. Okay, the loss. So Troy is no longer empathic and is suddenly filled with rage.
I'm going to say, Trev, because this is just for you. Apparently, Troy ran into a Peruvian dodo bird, and that's what made her lose her powers.
It happens. It happens. Call
Does
Dr.
happen.
Bombay.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
This episode was like really kind of just ugly Troy. I mean, it was like there was they just really it was like I just didn't like her. I didn't like how she was acting, what she was saying. I didn't like the the insinuation that somehow the human side of her was less. What I did appreciate though was that again, Riker comes in, Riker's this rock of stability basically, and you know, does what nobody else would do and just tells her straight up, you know, you're basically bred to your self-loathing and you hate your human side and you think, you know, everything that's human kind of, so you're above us and now we're on an equal playing field and now you don't like it. I thought his thing was kind of like, it was a weird reversal of roles because he's reading her without being empathic, but he's giving her a very clear and fair read. And she's in the loss of her superpower is kind of floundering and doing it in a way that's like, you're a counselor, like physician, heal thyself.
It's like, it is in keeping with Troy. Like she is a shitty patient. Like anytime something happens to her, she like, doesn't want help. She doesn't want to go to sick bay. Like she's like completely like flipped around and it's like
she's
awful.
me.
Whiny.
Yeah, she was whiny. I literally wrote down whiny.
She
was whiny as fuck. What I think would have fixed this episode is if it had been like another world where they were doing things a little more serialized. If it had been like Odo's arc when he becomes Solid, like draw it out over 6 episodes, 7, 8 episodes, and explore it. And then like don't compress all of her whininess into one episode. Like draw it out.
Baby steps.
A little bit like and actually discover, you know, what kind of counselor she can be without her powers and like learn from it. But it's a disservice to the character because it's just more Troy flogging, which they do throughout the series, and she's not like that. She is a Starfleet officer. She's a professional. She's a counselor. She's like, you know, tough as nails. She does get to prove it later on, thank God. But like, yeah, it's another shitty Troy flogging episode.
And Michelle's just raking in the bonus points tonight because she called out something I was going to mention, which is that Marina's late husband, Michael, Marina shared this at several cons. After watching this episode, looked at her and said, why does Troy turn into Marina when she loses her powers? Which Marina did not find as humorous as the audience did.
That would have been fine if she like became like sassy fucking Marina at a convention, like great. Like that's what I would like for what was the episode where she like ages and goes into like overdrive. She should have turned into Loxana, which I mean she did in some respects, but didn't in like the best way.
Yeah.
You know, sassy Troy.
All right, folks, where are our thumbs on the loss?
I want to close out this episode. I'm only giving it a thumbs up because it's a Troy episode, but really it should be a sideways. I will close out this episode with my thoughts and just say they did this character dirty, and I am usually loath to say the writing, but in this particular case, it was like she was an accomplished Starfleet officer. She had to go to school to be a psychologist. Like she was a therapist. It was not just that she was empathic. So the way that they went about executing her losing her empathic abilities, like I liked what happened with her and Beverly, because like sometimes we blow up at our friends, right? And she's lost something important.
What do you mean? No one here knows anything about that.
Shut the fuck up. Yeah, so like that kind of thing. But then the poutiness with the captain, I wish that the way that I would have fixed this episode would be that she would have gone to Data on her own, not have to be pep talked by the captain. Something there. And I agree that I do like that at the end she apologized and she acknowledged, like at the end she's like, I was so awful to her. Like she knows. And so like I I wish they
That
did
was a warp
better.
drive.
But yeah, but I wish they did better by her with the counseling, and that redheaded bitch can go fuck herself, because rude. That is not how you talk to your therapist. You're
so
absolutely wrong. You're so wrong. You're absolutely wrong.
Just wrong person that's going through an extreme trauma right now.
Yeah, and
No, just the passive aggressive voice. It was just like nails on a chalkboard.
Mhm. And all it took was a
Yep.
music box to bring her to her knees.
you're right. Not my favorite guest star, and that's not the actress's fault, but I hate that character so much. I feel very
But
passionate.
that was a great episode to have you reference, The Survivors. One of the best.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh no, I meant that Anson Brooks was brought to her knees by a music box. Music boxes
Oh.
are prevalent in Vienna episodes. Just in case you didn't
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I
Wasn't
don't know why
that the
that is.
one with
know. Just
the
noticing that trend.
that got into her head? Yeah.
Oh yeah, the music, it won't stop. Okay, episode 11. I don't want to hear anybody complaining about Data's day. I tease. Data faces the twin tasks of giving away the bride at Chief O'Brien's wedding and escorting Vulcan ambassador T'Pel to negotiate a treaty with the Romulans. Spoiler alert: she's not a Vulcan. I'm a
What?
huge fan of this episode.
She's a fake.
We get
I
the
love
dancing
this
doctor.
episode.
We get just a
Dancing
day in the
and
life.
housing.
The fact that the day in the life is the A plot and the B plot is like subterfuge with the Romulans was kind of brilliant. I wish we had more episodes like this, particularly in, while I despise the term new Trek, I wish we could get, but we can't because we only get 10 a season. Like, I just want to know what it's like hanging out on Discovery with Michael Burnham, and I want to know, like, but we never get that because it's always serialized storytelling, even in Strange New Worlds. So I freaking love this episode for all that it gives us in terms of like day in the life stuff, but also love that the day in the life sometimes involves almost going to war with the Romulans.
Yeah. Every now and again.
It happens. Thoughts?
I like
feelings?
the layout.
Thumbs up.
I liked that they're equal now,
Yeah, we got
Beverly and Data. She knows where his off switch is, and he knows that it's a nice little thing that the two of them have going there, a little secret society thing that they have going together.
And the literalness of, look up Data. Look into my eyes.
Right.
That whole conversation.
Right. The whole dancing. And then when
Yep.
she leaves, he gets a slinky woman, like, oh,
The
and
slinky woman.
smiles. I mean, it's perfect. The whole episode is perfect.
It also introduces us to one of Starfleet's best scientists who isn't actually in Starfleet and never actually gets to science. But I love Keiko O'Brien and I stand for her.
She's the best.
And she was frequently not given as much material as she should have been given. So
Her
are we?
hair is so healthy.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous. I don't even notice hair on people usually because I don't have any, but hers stands out.
I feel that.
Thoughts, feelings, Data's day. Are we all a thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think we did that already.
Sweet.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Although I really wish that they had. I think it would have been funny if he had actually tap danced at the wedding, like asked somebody to dance.
You're not wrong.
And then started a whole tap.
Just
That
busted out tap
shit
dancing.
would have put me on the floor. That would
And
have.
then
Yeah,
have joined
I
him to
do
make
like
him not feel so awkward.
Right.
Yeah, it would have
Come
been
on,
that
doctor.
would be hilarious. Like, I love that the doctor was like, "Wait a minute, this is for the wedding," but like, that would have been great.
Episode 12, The Wounded. The Enterprise intercepts a starship whose renegade captain is attacking the Cardassians, former enemies of the Federation, soon to be future enemies, soon to be former again. This is basically backstory on O'Brien, introducing the Cardassians. We get to
Leading
watch,
into Deep Space Nine.
leading into DS9. We get to watch Keiko and Miles argue about food, which is super weird in the 24th century.
Yes,
That's very
'Cause it
weird.
makes it sound like they both grew up on their respective islands and never encountered other cultures until they met each other.
and like they just got married, like they've had each other's foods before.
right.
One would hope.
Yeah, it was bizarre, but all in all, an interesting story about war and war veterans and how people get mired in ways of thinking that isn't always healthy.
And not Gul Dukat.
and not Gul Dukat, though still Gul Dukat. And we get Miles singing.
Mm.
Don't get that again.
And a
Thoughts,
great
Jim?
line. What is happening to this war?
Mm, is a good
That's
line.
a paraphrase of it, but it's interesting. War's
Yeah.
over. It was almost like this was the episode that they were basically saying to our audience, this guy, we're going to move him to Deep Space Nine. We're going to give him basically an episode. We're going to show you guys that he's got his acting chops. You're going to love when we spin him off.
Yep.
So,
I'm a
Yeah.
fan. Thoughts?
yeah.
I like
Oh.
it for O'Brien. I just like O'Brien.
Yeah,
We also got the Nebula class in this one, although the really bad variant
we did get the Nebula.
with that weird disc up top.
Hey,
But they fixed it for the Sutherland.
sometimes you got to put your disc in weird places.
It's a double.
This is true.
Who hasn't put their disc in a weird place? Episode.
I don't know that this counts.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I will always take that when it's assigned to me.
But it feels
Because whether you've heard the thought audibly or not, the thought was there. So you may as well call me
Yes.
out on it.
Yeah.
Episode 13. I have a feeling that I know how someone's going to vote on this one. Devil's Due. The Enterprise comes to the aid of the Ventaxians, who are forced and faced with the prospect of fulfilling a diabolical contract made by their ancestors. So this introduces Star Trek to the Wonderful World of Ardra and her con artistry in pretending she's the devil to the people of Ventax. And she also turns into Feklar, which is fun for those of you who are Klingon fans. I kind of love it. I realized that it was wasn't it a Phase 2 episode that they repurposed into a TNG episode?
It was a Phase 2 episode, and they barely rewrote. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
they just like move the lines around and change the names. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is why in this episode Picard is very Kirk in this episode. I think.
Yes.
Very.
And Data is very Spock.
I liked this episode. You'll be surprised. I liked this episode. She reminded me very much of Lolita Davidovich, an actress. She played Blaze Star. You guys probably, I'm too old for you. But the best part of the episode was Data as the advocate, like
Mhm.
just the way he played that. And I prefer Audra to Vash any day of the
Mhm.
week.
Mhm.
Well, we don't need to compare women, Krista.
I can't. I am in possession of a uterus, so
She
I
has a
get the
hoo-ha. She can
privilege.
compare.
I have the hoo-has,
You're in possession. Are you gonna give it
So-
back? Jeez.
Yeah.
so I can.
On her
I'm
person.
just gonna. I prefer her because she was much more fun. She was funny. She was nuanced. She was irreverent, and in some ways delightful as a villain. It was entertaining. I'm not entertained by Vash, and it's not because she was involved with Picard. I just find her character to be very kind of one-dimensional. There's no growth there at all.
You'll be able to talk
well,
about
there's-
her in a few
I
minutes.
just need to say, are you not entertained? I just felt like saying that.
I was entertained by her. I think the whole premise is sort of like vaguely kind of poking fun at institutionalized religion. I don't know that
Yeah.
it was necessarily
yeah.
meant, but anything that pokes fun at institutionalized religion, I'm there for.
I think it was.
Popcorn.
TNG, like
I'm
TNG
going to
in
sit
particular,
down.
I find is really is very like humanist. Like it celebrates that no, actually humans did all of these things, and like they actually go through an exercise of unpacking all of it and being like, no, well, actually we did this and we did that, and Arga didn't do any of it.
Right.
So it kind of
She
lays
not
it all
pick
out. So,
Piece of trash.
you know.
Did not.
It would, to Krista's point, it would have been really fun and an opportunity for Troy to sense the attraction between Picard and Ardra, like that Picard was
Yes.
reciprocating the attraction. That would have been a fun little thing to play in the episode
You do
where
find
she
her
was spoiled,
fascinating.
but he was also like, wow. Thoughts on Devil's Due? Show me your thumbs.
This is one of my favorite episodes. It's an episode I suggest people who haven't been into Trek watch, because it's an easy standalone, fun. You get to it's a trial episode. It's a good, fun villain, who probably would have
And-
gotten away with it if she had not tried to go for the ship as well.
Or for those darn
The only
kids.
the only
Exactly.
thing about it that would change is I wish there was more Troy and Beverly, who wasn't in this episode at all, was she?
No.
Which so scenes with them could have been really fun, but one of my favorite episodes in all of Trek. Thumbs up. And anybody who
Which
says
is ironic, Stan, because it is for all intents and purposes an original series written episode.
Yeah.
That you like so much. So yeah. And it fit well in the concept of the original series. Like, think about the original series concepts of like standalone episodes like Piece of the Action, or The Trouble with Tribbles, or this kind of, it has that kind of a weird vibe to it. That's fun. Thumbs up.
Episode 14, Clues. Picard suspects Data of lying about a phenomenon that rendered the crew unconscious.
I just have to say that every time I hear the word phenomenon, I feel like going do 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 phenomenon do 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 do.
So yeah, that was like a really weird description. So basically they encounter what they think is a wormhole that has rendered everyone unconscious. There's a whole back and forth between, Data says we were only out for 15 minutes, but there are slowly pieces to a puzzle that start to emerge that suggest they've been unconscious for an entire day, including Diavidian Scarlet Moss.
Dun dun dun. Bum bum.
Listen, Bev likes to grow moss. It's not her fault.
In like it was like in a cake, like a cake
Yes.
thing, which
Yeah.
is like, that's what you would, if you were taking a cake somewhere, that's what you would put it
It didn't help that
I-
it looked like cotton candy.
in. It
Yeah.
did look like cotton candy.
It looked Scarlet Moss looks delicious.
I liked this episode though, because it sort of takes us back to the Measure of a Man, and it follows the whole Brothers episode, where you've got an android that you to a certain extent you can't necessarily predict what this creature is going to do, and he has the power to take over the ship.
Mhm.
He has the power to do these things, and so again, so closely following when he got disabled or whatever and took over the ship, to then follow with an episode where he's actively lying. It was kind of interesting. Like, what do you do in this situation? How do you prove it? And so yeah, I liked it. It was kind of a conundrum that questions, how in depth can you get with somebody that is basically an android? Like, how invested can you get in that person? Can you trust them implicitly, or are there circumstances where they will lie, even if they're directed to lie, without you knowing that you were the one that told them to do this? So I thought the whole premise was kind of interesting in terms of like AI kind of taking over and all of this.
The only
Interesting.
thing I didn't enjoy was that we didn't get enough Guinan. This would have been a great Guinan episode for her to sense that something was off with the timeline. I mean, we'd already seen her perception in season 3 because Yesterday's Enterprise has already happened at this point. So why not let her be one of the things that is a clue that, like, she's like, no, something's not right. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it, but something's off.
Is she in
because
the episode?
We got her as Gloria from Cleveland in the holodeck. Yeah. She went to
Oh yeah,
to
right.
experience the Dixon Hill, because for some reason Picard loves being a 1920s gumshoe. I don't know.
Who doesn't?
Because he grew up as an 1800s schoolboy, so why not? But anywho, clues, feelings. Actually,
Feelings.
kind of like it.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Great. It's a good mystery.
Well, we
Everybody
brought
was thumbs
fireworks
up
for
here.
something that was okay. I don't know how to tell you this, but You're Just Okay is far more spectacular than you realize.
Yeah, I guess so.
Episode 15, one of Star Trek's best guest stars ever. First Contact. While on a First Contact mission to a planet on the verge of space travel, Riker is captured and accused of leading an alien invasion. So this is where we get my character that never came back that I wish did, Marasta Yale. And I wish that she hooked up with Nella Darren and they ran off and had lots of gay babies. But more importantly, we get Bibi Newworth as just a horny nurse that wants to bang an alien. And I'm sorry.
God.
but, like,
God, it was so good.
and
I rewatched
So
this
good.
yesterday. Like he totally goes through with it, right?
oh yeah, no, she's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
putting her glasses back on, leaving the
Yeah.
room. Like
Yeah. God, I
this
love,
might be TMI, but they're one of the first things off and the first things back on. So just so y'all know.
This is
It's
true.
such a conservative
Um,
society, and they're so
for this reason and this reason alone. This episode is fantastic. Spoiler alert, one thing that we've discussed doing for future salons in the void of new Trek episodes is taking random characters and be like, hey, basically we're going to turn this into a PowerPoint presentation about like where are they now? And I want to do Marasta Yale. I want to talk about where I think she is.
You can't do Maresta Yale because Nella Darren is doing Maresta Yale and they're making gay babies.
They
I
are.
almost got past. I thought it as soon as I said it. I was like, I heard it. Just keep going. Try to get past this. And like, yep, you
It's a
caught
problematic
me.
gay alert. It's a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
By the
Hey,
way, it's a tangent, but it is on Paramount Plus. If
No,
you guys have
you
not,
and say whatever you want to say. Go for it.
if you guys have not been watching, all right,
You're
I'm
such
gonna
an
say,
ass.
I am gonna say. I wonder if this does anything. Does this do anything with the? I wonder now.
It really should. Apple should make like.
It
I
should
mean,
do
if
something.
spoons for this.
Yeah.
I
Bibi
want to
Newworth.
do a presentation
Newworth.
on what I believe Marasta Yale is doing in the Federation.
It's Nella
Ken,
Darren.
Bibi,
Go ahead.
Bibi
Ken.
Newworth comes back as Lilith in the latest episode of Frasier, which is fantastic. That's what I was gonna say. So
Oh, and the reboot.
in the reboot,
Oh.
excellent.
That's
episode.
spoiler
right.
alert for Frasier.
Yeah.
I'm just sad
Uh,
that she didn't come back in the final season of Madam Secretary as like an ambassador.
Yeah,
That would
she was great in that show.
She was fantastic in that show.
Yeah, that
And
show was
even her
great.
departure was great. But anyway, love her.
But yes, I love this episode. I like we've had a few, especially in Next Generation, like First Contact situation go wrong. And this was a totally fresh angle of like, oh, we're talking to a scientist. They're about to achieve, but we have to accelerate because of whatever. The only thing, and this is a great episode to point out that it's not a new phenomenon in Star Trek, that it's full of plot holes. Why is the first officer of the Enterprise like interacting with these people at all? Like why would we send him? They're specialists on this planet. And it's plot. It's plot. We needed plot to tell the story, whatever.
But anything in modern Trek, it would have been, oh, he was an anthropologist, or he was a first contact specialist in his former, before he got to the Enterprise. Like there would have been a
Yes.
lot of groundwork there that TNG was always like, let's just insert things into their bios as we need them.
Let's have
Well,
the
even then,
entire
though,
command staff.
even when they have professionals down there, anytime they do surface reconnaissance, they fuck it up every
Yes.
single time. Starfleet is horrible at this. They have to stop.
That's true.
Although maybe it's like we only see it in an episode when it's bad. Maybe it's happening all the time and it's going fine.
It was also interesting to see, like, and this is quintessential Trek as well. Like, either the whole planet is unified under a single government ish, or we just don't see other factions and they don't reference it at all. Which, like, I'm judging based on Earth right now. Like, how realistic is that? Like, we're going to develop a warp drive because we want to beat the Russians to it. Like, the space race has never stopped and it never will, except now we're racing China and India as well. But that's too many layers that they would have to add into an episode.
Show me your thumbs, people. First contact.
Show me your what's my or thumbs.
Carolyn Seymour, always a gem.
I mean, can't go wrong. Carolyn Seymour, BB Newirth. I'm just sad they didn't have a scene together. Episode 16. Oh, this is problematic. Galaxy's Child. The Enterprise serves as a surrogate mother to a newborn energy being. Geordi, spelled incorrectly, faces the real Dr. Brahms, who he once recreated on the holodeck and may or may not have shagged.
Burn
I have
it.
thoughts on this.
What
one.
that says?
I have thoughts. Can I go first?
Please.
Okay. I do not. I just. Okay. The whole Geordi thing. I can't deal with it at all. It is. I understand that it was the time that it was done, that this was sort of normal behavior. But the thing that really shit the bed for me was when they're in holodeck 3 and she's facing herself and says, I really feel I've been violated. And his response is to blame her for misunderstanding his intentions. And it's like a level of gaslighting that is so extreme. And I think, like, the scenes with Guinan, she was kind of trying to say, you feel kind of entitled to a relationship with this person that you don't really know, without actually saying, stop being an entitled prick. You don't even know this person. And, what you do know is what you've made up in your own mind. So I can't stand that entire storyline. It was a disservice to the character of Geordi, and it set the stage for him, like, quite literally having no game whatsoever at all. And I think it was really disingenuous. The other thing that I thought was interesting is this is also the one where there's the space mollusks and they kill the mother and they have to do a C-section on her to release the baby. And as I'm watching this, they're on the bridge and she's like, do it. And, Beverly's like, do a laser C-section, squirt the baby out. And this baby is like 2 seconds old. And they're like, okay, done. It's like, literally was like, she was at the blackjack table in fucking Vegas and she was dealing and it was time for her replacement. And she's like, done. I'm out. This thing is 2 seconds old. And everybody's like, absolutely. Good luck surviving. You're going to have to figure out a way to survive.
There are many animals in the animal kingdom that are like that, though.
Let's just not, because then it's because it's just like in the middle of space. And to me, my mind immediately went to, this is literally the Christian, conservative, fascist, pro-life scenario on my screen right now. Fine when you're in there, squirt it out, done. No housing, no food, no milk, no nothing. Good luck. And to me, I think in 4 seasons, the numerous altercations she's had with Picard regarding the Prime Directive, regarding her duty of care, it seems so entirely uncharacteristic that she would literally be like, yeah, there's nothing more I can do. Okay, bye. And then she's gone. And then this thing suckles itself onto the bridge, and they're like, well, what do we need to do? Well, let's open one of the shuttle bays and blow this fucking thing off. I mean, it's just like cruelty on top of cruelty on top of it. The whole episode. Loathe this episode. It's just uncharacteristic presentations of it's just awful. And
the Enterprise was literally the American Republican Party. The baby was like, please, exactly. And the Enterprise was like, fuck you.
It's fucking the NCC GOP 1701. I could not deal with it. And
the gaslighting women inside the ship.
I was like, seriously. But yeah. And then at the end, they're like, well, you should have seen your face when I saw my face. And I'm like, oh, everything's fine. This was like next level weirdness. And you don't just
the
go
books
and
make it so much worse.
Yeah, you just don't go to 10 forward and it's all good. And now I have a phone call from my husband, so I gotta go. I mean, it's weird. And absolutely, let's include a scene where they're in the Jeffries fucking tube so that they're all, and she's, supine laying on her side. It's like just so fucking bad.
I will say
the whole thing.
One thing I did appreciate.
Tube is like the casting couch. No.
One thing I did appreciate about the episode, though, is the number of times I've said, "Oh, it's my husband," while sitting at a bar with coworkers in order to get the fuck out of there. I have used that excuse many times, so I appreciated that.
Yeah, how did this never come up? I have so many problems with this episode and the one in which she's introduced. Like, first of all, quick, I'm going to give myself a tangent alert because we got to talk about AI, or what's being called AI. Where the hell is it? I can't even find. There it is. So we're seeing this play out today, right? Like the SAG-AFTRA contract is still being looked over by the tentative agreement. The WGA strike ended a few weeks ago. We need rules about how AI can be used. And it is just shocking to me that this is obviously written in the 90s, but we see in Deep Space Nine a clear example of there needs to be regulations. And here we see a clear example. There need to be regulations about creating real people on the holodeck. And I'm not altruistic here. I cannot say that whoever I'm crushing, I would not program a Chris Evans to be in love with me on the holodeck. I without regulations in place to stop me. I just got to be honest. That man is beautiful, and if I had a holodeck,
and he makes me do things that are bad.
And yet so good and fun. But in this case, it's just so gross. The episode in which she's introduced that when you're touching the engines, ew, gross. What? No, no. There is no universe in which the Enterprise computer, having programmed her personality of the designer of your fucking starship, would say that shit. She was a professional starship designer and an engineer. How does the Enterprise D know that she's just sexy engineer? That's not her personality. That's not
maybe Geordi threw in some.
Has written up actually Dr. Brahms is quite the minx in the design layer. No, gross. And in this episode, just blech.
In fairness, we've never seen her at the Starfleet. We've never seen her at the propulsion.
Ship propulsion lab.
Was she at Utopia Planitia propulsion, whatever, Christmas party? We never saw her. We don't know what she was like. True. You don't know what's in her HR file.
Time, and she's just really sexy.
And who? How do you know that Geordi didn't put in some of his own little subroutines into this.
No, he did.
Yeah.
There may be.
Yeah,
There, I'll
he
bet he
wrote
put
the
it in
fan
his
fiction.
subroutine.
Yes.
He was touching his
Yeah.
subroutine.
Gross.
Those aren't subroutines.
And yes, consent. We need consent.
But do you
Yes,
need
so-
consent to
like-
the holodeck
like-
program?
For all saloners, just remember if you're going to recreate anyone that's real holographically in order to bang them, make sure you ask for
A fake person, like if you're going to be on the holodeck, a fake person, it can't be real. I guess I don't know. We'll break down the morality of that later.
All right,
In
everyone.
another
When you're putting up your thumbs, you're showing them to me. Give me your thumbs on this episode. No, I don't like it. I don't like
So
it. It's
bad.
okay. It's okay.
No, it's bad. I don't like
It's
it.
bad.
Sour
The only way to fix this one is to go back in time and kill the writer.
All right, so I hated it too. But
I think that can be
All right, next episode.
next time on an all-new
In the
episode.
dark, one
Oh,
moon.
God.
Night terrors, folks. The Enterprise encounters the same fate as a ship it was sent to rescue, drifting in a section of space where dream deprivation can drive the crew to insanity and murder.
Dun, dun, dun.
I have thoughts.
Of course.
This is the one where Beverly
it.
go away.
Yes.
Yes.
First of all,
And
yeah, this
also-
is where
If we don't get REM sleep, we will all go insane.
it's
She's
the episode where
doing this with her hands.
where zombie apocalypse Beverly just wishes bad things away. Though I did appreciate that she was like actually trying to think rationally in an irrational moment, but it was like it would have been cooler if she had like busted out a phaser and just started shooting. Like, let's be honest, pump action, just started blasting people.
Like in
See,
Picard
they,
season 3.
they weren't going to give her that. They were just
No.
going to have her do this.
Go.
Go away.
I bet if I
Like
clench my
if she
fist,
had
I
a
could make
sheet,
bad men
she
leave.
would have crawled under it.
We get Deannaing.
We
Listen,
do.
Troy Boy. Troy Boy for life.
You get
Like
her-
no, and like
floating
her
in.
talking to Data, being like, no, Data. I'm gonna get their attention for like 3 seconds. I can't communicate this.
Oh yeah, where he was like, perhaps you could just convey to them the entire periodic table. She's like, I don't think that's gonna work.
Succinct.
My favorite, one of my favorite convention stories though. This is like in 9091 when Marina would talk about this episode. Because she used to do every little town convention known to man, like all those little creation conventions she would go to. So I've heard this story like 3 or 4 times from her, where she was super excited because they told her she was going to fly in this episode. And then she saw her stunt double on the cables and was like, that stunt double has an ass significantly larger than mine. Because when you see her flying, she's just like butt out to the world, just like drifting through the green screen. And she was really mad the stunt double had a big booty.
Half the dialogue for her was, "Where are you? Where are you?
I have to tell you.
Where are you?"
It's like, just fucking tell them. Stop screaming.
I'm here with you. Where are you?
One moon.
One eyes.
Eyes in the dark.
Yeah.
I did enjoy. I very much enjoyed Star Trek trying to do horror. That was kind of fun, or like spooky. Like it was like a
Yeah.
spooky episode.
Gates pulled it off better with Genesis. Let's just,
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
just put it
and
out there.
this episode premiered in March.
Yeah,
Like,
but those
could this not
those
have been an
corpses
October episode?
scared the fuck out of me.
The what did?
The corpses sitting
Oh,
up.
yeah.
That,
Yeah.
No, that was
scared-
fucking scary.
I
That was
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah, that was.
would not have been like go away. I would have been running out sobbing.
Well,
Screaming.
see, again, she stayed calm. She was calm, collected. She consistent.
I only have 2 real
Just
criticisms though. The bridge of the Britain was a weird ass looking bridge. And there's an episode of Voyager that does the same thing. Give us a guest star, kind of pinnacle to the plot, and then we have no idea what happens to him afterward. Like
Yeah.
Andrew Hagen is never heard from or seen again. Not even.
There he is.
I mean, Marasta
There he
Gale,
is.
at least we know that she went to stay on the Enterprise and then like
Right.
went off and had a happy life in the Federation. Andrew, did he wake up? Who knows? Like, homeboy was just laying on a bed, mumbling to himself, and that's the last time we saw him. Makes me think of Christus Mannequin. I'm not sure what that's a reference to, the scary zombie people or Andrus Hagen, but I'll take it. Show me your thumbs.
Eh,
Sorry, Captain. It's a thumb sideways.
It's okay to be wrong.
where are you? I like you. You do a great impression of that, Krista. Where are
Thank you. Well, there were so many
yes.
to choose from. It was
Yeah.
like,
All right, we got 15 minutes. What's the next episode?
Oh, we can crush this.
Really?
Like crushing it like
Crusher it.
Crusher. Episode 18, Identity Crisis. 5 years after investigating a mysterious abandoned outpost, members of the away team begin to exhibit unusual symptoms and an overwhelming urge to return to the planet. Do we all remember this one? Where Jordy
Nope.
turns into the weird little lizard creature and Susanna
Oh,
Lighton
yeah.
is like, why?
glowing eyes. The glowing
Glowy eyes.
Where he's like
Blue
Weird
eyes.
shit glued
basically
to him.
lying naked in the transporter room.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. What?
I liked this one.
I like
I
it.
liked it.
I thought
I
it was
think-
fun.
I had the Geordie action figure where he's got all the weird glowy veins on him.
I only give it a sideways because it just doesn't pop out.
like the veins.
I like that it gave us a little bit of Geordie backstory. It gave us Susanna Lighton, who we don't know what her job is. She's just a lieutenant commander in red, and she's just here. And we're like, what do you do? Okay, I have very passionate thoughts about the next one. Are we ready? We're moving on. Episode 19, The Nth Degree.
Oh,
A shy, introspective crewman, I don't know why they just didn't say Barclay, is transformed into a super being who interfaces with the ship's computer, taking the Enterprise into an uncharted realm of space.
The special guest star Albert Einstein.
I hate Barkley, but I love this episode.
I love this. Is one of my top 10.
Really?
This is literally
Wow.
one of my
Really?
top 10 episodes.
I don't like
Yes.
this episode.
I don't
Really?
recognize you people.
Yeah, this episode
Seriously?
doesn't do it for me. Yeah.
Okay, let me just hear me
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
This episode for me was one of the few characters that they serialized. So we get him on the holodeck having fantasy time with Deanna and Wesley and Beverly, and he's moved past the holodeck, and now he's doing this play. And for me, I love this episode because it is presented as one of the most human things, and that is simply wanting to belong and
Yeah.
being a person that does not belong
Hmm.
and feels that they don't belong all the time, and the kind of place that puts you in your head. And so for me, it's kind of like he's kind of like Zuckerberg in that, we started the social network. We started this because a girl wouldn't go out with him, and he's like the guy that festers in the corner about every slight, everything, but all he really wants is to belong. And in this episode, I love it because it shows that you can have all of those things. You can get all of the power. You can get all of the influence. You can get all of these external things, but it still doesn't mean you belong. You have to be able to make human connections with other people. You have to be able to do what Deanna said, which is be brave enough to expose yourself in a way that is risky and face what comes back at you, and still manage to integrate that as a learning experience and grow from that. So, the way they sort of serialized Data's character and the way they serialized Picard's character and their arcs, they're doing the same thing with Barclay. And I think, setting aside the actors' political leanings, I can't imagine anyone else playing this character. He does it so well, and there's like a real tangible vulnerability that he presents in this that is usurped by power and it being corrupting. And so for me, I love this episode. It's really a cautionary tale, but it's really very much the story of how badly people that don't feel like they fit want to fit. They want to be something more than, they want to be the person that somebody comes and asks for advice, that somebody asks for an explanation. How did you do that? That's all they want. They just want to belong. And it's one of the most human episodes that the franchise gives us, in my opinion.
Okay, well now I have to rewatch it because I love that perspective. So
Okay.
now I'm gonna rewatch it. Show me your thumbs, people.
But tell me why you don't like it first.
To me, it just I first of all, I never really enjoyed the character of Barkley, but to me, it was one of those, like, I like Barkley when he's not the center of everything. Like, this was basically just a Barkley episode, and everyone else was around him, and that just kind of annoyed me.
Right.
And I didn't love. My view is also tainted by like being 15 years old, watching this guy just take over the ship, and that seems dangerous. And like I just didn't enjoy it when I was watching it, and so I think my perspective, my perspective has always been based on that weird, like my visceral reaction at 15. So like my perspective hasn't evolved much, but I also skip it a lot. So that's why I want to rewatch it with that thought.
I love the humor in this episode that has nothing to do with Barkley, except like he's a terrible actor, and yet somehow, like, here I'm going to give myself a Bev alert because this episode is does a disservice to the character of Beverly Crusher, because there is no chance that she would have cast Reginald Barkley as Cyrano de Bergerac. No chance. But
you're not wrong.
She did. So we get to see this, and not only we enjoy this beautiful blue dress, but Data unintentionally giving shade. Like the moment where he's looking confused, he's like,
"Oh, it was adequate."
It was adequate, and Riker has to say, "You need to clap because it's polite." Data, hilarious. Yeah, but I love the, like, as much as I definitely don't like the actor, and I have a hard time liking the character. Like, I see a little bit of myself in Barkley, and so like him getting his due and being able to be like seen for as smart as he is, and then realize, like, oh, I'm actually smarter now than whatever. There's some fun stuff in this episode.
Good point, Michelle. Bev does look fantastic, and it introduces the blue sweater.
I think also it's kind of important to mention that you know, he was introduced as Broccoli. He was introduced as this guy that it finds friendship and companionship on a holodeck. And, you know, a couple episodes ago, we have Geordi, you know, finding companionship on the holodeck. And Geordi was one of the first in the episode to pick up the broccoli and thinking that was very funny. And so, again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, he's moved on and Geordi's still playing on the holodeck. So who are you to decide who, you know, it's low hanging fruit. Don't pick on the awkward person. It's low hanging fruit. And you just, you know, had an argument with the real person that saw your imaginary person, and you handled that very badly. So let's reserve judgment, shall we, Geordi?
I love that 9 minutes ago we were like, no, we'll breeze through this, and we're 2 episodes further.
Oh, there's a couple that I don't think. No, don't be, because I think there's a couple where I don't think anyone's going to have.
You should be, Krista.
As we get to the tail end of season 4, the strong season 4 streak starts to fizzle a little bit. So
Wait, can I also add just really quick, because now I have license, can I add also, I understand that it's unlikely that Beverly would cast him as Cyrano, but think about the character of Cyrano. He's on the
Sure.
outside.
You're not
The
wrong.
imagery plays is
Also, maybe this was
and you
the junior varsity. I don't know what I did theater.
Maybe- maybe Deanna
Told her
suggested
to.
to Bev,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
why don't you try giving it to Barkley?
right.
Yeah, that's probably what
Nobody's going to
happened.
win a Tony for this. This is just like a production for the crew.
Yeah.
Okay, show me your thumbs, people. Up, 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 down. It's an up. It's a winner. Okay.
It's a wiener.
I think we can probably blow through this one because I think we're probably all in sync on this one. I hope. Episode 20, Cupid. Picard's old foe Q transforms the captain and crew into Robin Hood and his merry men, and Picard's old flame, Bosch, which is French for cow, into Maid Marian in distress.
It's fun. It's silly. I do like Bosch. I respect.
I like it. I actually like it.
You're
Really?
Worf saying, "I am not a merry man."
I am not a merry man. Yes.
Krista, are we alone on this? I'm
No,
with them.
I am so with you.
Okay.
The whole point, I can't even. The whole point of this episode was to basically explain why both Q and Vosh show up on, I think, DS9. That's the entire premise.
No, that's not it.
Is it where
They
do
do
they
eventually do that.
They do
They do.
that, but that's not why this episode was created. So
Okay, I'm saying that's why the episode was, because I'm in my
That was its
box.
only value.
I have the talking stick, so.
Okay. But that was years later.
I'm
Wait,
saying,
she's got the hoo-ha and the talking stick? How does,
I've got the
who's in
hoo-ha
charge of
and the talking
procurement?
stick.
Just don't get the talking stick into the who.
There was also a lovely
I-
scene between Beverly and Vosh. I love Beverly giving Picard shit with the other women. I hate the Beverly having a face, the writers screwing with them, and like the lessons of it all. Like,
Mhm.
like the Beverly we know and love would be the way that she was with Vosh with any
Yeah.
potential love interest. Like
Mhm.
what they did with the others was shitty. I love that aspect of this episode.
Playful and mature.
I'm glad they show her around.
They just had so much fun with this episode. I mean, the scene where Data's trying to talk and he's suddenly holding a turkey leg. I mean, that's just funny stuff. So
Right, but
Alright.
probably my biggest objection is that they send them into Sherwood Forest and they do a whole Robin Hood thing, and that's all well and good, and we can go to AU Universe and yippee-ki-yay, but the two people in the cast that actually have fencing swordplay experience were left to crack terracotta pots on people's heads instead of letting them. It's like, Sirtis
not supposed to be
had-
logical. It's a cute thing.
only-
It's not supposed to be logical. It's supposed to be silly. Yeah.
Ken, quit fucking with my mojo right now, because
I don't think I will.
Also, that
I
was-
don't think I
no.
will stop fucking with your logic.
That straight
don't
up
think
was
so.
not. That was not a Q thing. That was everyone else remembered how to fight. Like, why did these two women
Yeah,
do that? It was
that
because
was
the
a
writers
writer
were men
thing.
and they're assholes.
that's
Do we have a blame
This is-
men banner?
men.
We need one. All right.
Yeah, this is like it
Bums.
facilitated nothing. It just, she is still a trickster, coy mistress, wink, wink, and it's, Trev, you follow me, what
I
I'm
just,
saying.
I do, but I just saw Joel's comment of Mojo messing alert, which is fantastic. All right, I'm apparently I'm okay. I'm moving us on because
Yes.
unfortunately, Krista and I are alone in not liking that episode. Episode 21. I don't want to hear it if you don't like this episode. The Drumhead.
This
An
episode
investigation
sucks.
into espionage aboard the Enterprise escalates into a witch hunt when a retired Starfleet admiral, and they spelled Starfleet wrong, suspects treachery and implicates Picard.
Speaking of espionage,
What?
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 There he is.
Commodore.
I'm always
Oh, it's so
always watching.
adorable and
He's-
creepy all the same time.
Matt has joined us to root out all the conspiracies.
Just at the time we talk about the Drumhead, here he
Matt's-
is.
Matt's brought down bigger men than you, Picard.
This is
true.
true.
No.
I like
I
that
have
we
gone
found
down
out
on
that
bigger men.
Then
Wow.
Picard.
The
Then
subtlety.
Picard.
Picard has
Can't even get a
Coming
drink
in
of water.
strong
without
right
triggering.
away, Matt. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Been here
I
30 seconds and he triggered a
I
problematic.
want to
handle.
remind our panelists not to talk over each other because we're getting a lot of cross talk.
Oh, be quiet.
Just editing these is a special hell, and
Oh yeah,
I feel for our audience.
right. These
Welcome
are
back, Mike.
persistent now, right? These are no longer deleted. These are persistent.
This is true.
So the Drumhead, show me your thumbs, people.
Thumbs
I'm a
up.
double thumbs up.
Oh,
Benji.
Benji, you
Ooh,
don't like it. Wow.
Everyone, shut up! Shut your mouths, Benji.
I
You
think
are
everybody.
Benji, talkative as always, but I want to
Fun.
really give you the floor so that you can be heard.
Everybody fawns over a witch hunt episode. They think it's so relevant and it's been done to death. I think it's boring. And I think Admiral Satie's performance is so fucking over the top. I can't stand it. And she ruins the whole episode for me. I'm not kidding.
it was the Snuggie. It was the Snuggie.
It was a,
I don't care what they do with the collar. It's a
Love
Snuggie.
that dress so much.
sometimes it's a turtleneck, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's orange, sometimes it's
Exactly.
purple.
It's versatile.
But you know what's
9
interesting
times
about
he
that
broke the Prime
episode?
Directive.
Her attaché is constantly on her device,
Yes.
which is like prescient to everyone now, right?
Indeed.
Really interesting. So
All right.
just
I
saying.
respect you, Benji, but you're wrong.
Okay.
Hey, points are made, and they're not falling completely flat with me. I love this episode, but I agree. I think this episode's overhyped a little bit. Picard's speech is like not really a speech. It's a good quote, but there's some good moments for sure.
There's also no point in a hearing where you just get to ramble.
Yes,
Just throwing that out there.
and like
Um,
the Admiral
Well,
just
it also-
walks out,
it
and that's
also-
the signal that it's done. Like, okay, cool.
well, he couldn't speak because they didn't pay him to.
I will
But
say my only thing with any of the courtroom things with any Star Trek episode is that they are never actually courtroom scenes.
Mhm.
It's just who can monologue best and how can our characters make the best point. So I will say that always does take me out of it. With there's so many of them that are like, okay, if this is an actual Starfleet hearing, then yeah.
Court martial was good.
It's an everyone is suddenly lawyers episode.
Yeah.
That too.
It's
okay.
interesting that everybody is legal counsel, but also
Yeah.
it sort of shows that even in the 25th or 24th century, it does not matter what the truth is. It only matters what you can prove. And
That's why they only ever have
Optics.
informal hearings on Star Trek. They never have an
yeah,
actual
optics are generally the truth. So yeah, disappointing.
Episode 22, Half a Life. Troy's mother, Loaxana, is smitten with a scientist whose culture demands he return to his home planet to commit ritual suicide.
His home planet, the 4077.
Not
I,
the
I, love,
worst.
Yep.
I love David Ogden Stiers. Come on, he was beautiful in this.
Yeah.
I love
He
him.
was, like,
I love the episode.
heart-wrenchingly beautiful.
we talked earlier
I love
about
it.
respecting, like when does respecting culture, but establishing your own and like setting your own limits cross the line. And this is a beautiful example of that, where he's not killing himself on the ship. Like he just needs to return home to do what his culture says that he needs to do. And it's yes,
It's a fantastic performance by Majel Barrett, and probably the
Indeed.
best Loaxana Troy episode. And Michelle Forbes did a fantastic job in her first appearance in the universe, right? Really well done.
I will have to
comments
say,
on the hair.
going back and watching like all of the Loaxana Troy episodes, she is always getting the short end of the stick in everything, and yet everyone always just remembers her as like the comedic relief character, which she absolutely is. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's one of the reasons why I love Loaxana so much, is that's like everyone remembers you as that like funny, oh everything's fine, but in reality, like your life has gone horribly wrong and you've just made the best out of it. And this is kind of her defense mechanism of this like peacocking, because she lost a daughter, she lost a husband, she lost like all of these other husbands that she's tried to have. And so it's just always fun to watch those episodes, especially that one where she is, you can see that like raw emotion with her. And I really do think she's one of the most underrated characters that gets overlooked. So I absolutely love that episode.
Majel also does a thing that I only noticed because Sirach Lofton in his podcast mentioned that Will Wheaton does it, which is they're always eye acting even when they're not in focus. Like they're always emoting, they're always expressing, they're always like tied into whatever's happening, and Majel is she's such a stage actress. She's just assuming that someone can look at her even when the camera's not on her. So anywho,
she seems like the character, the way she plays it. For me, for this episode, it sort of made me think, like, if you knew when your timestamp was, like, if you knew, how would your life be different? How would your world be different? What are the things that you say no to yourself now that you wouldn't say no to if you knew you only had this much time? And I think between the two characters, initially he starts out with his work has been his entire life. And then he meets this peacocking woman, this woman that is completely full of life and is like, I've been here, almost 60 years and I've not experienced this. And she sort of represents how I think people would act if they didn't fear death. If they knew when the end was going to be, then all your decisions prior to that wouldn't be predicated on fear anymore. They would be predicated on fulfillment of experience. And she seems like the best representation of a character that does that. Now, self-indulgent, yes, and aristocratic and sort of imperialistic, but still, like, I agree. This is that I don't generally care for the Loaxana episodes at all, but this one falls in one of my top 10.
I feel like in this one they finally learned how to write for her. I'm a thumbs up. Everybody else, show me your thumbs.
Yeah,
Yep.
well-rounded. Big thumbs up.
Sweet. We're almost there, guys. Episode 23, The Host. Dr. Crusher's love affair with an alien ambassador becomes complicated when the ambassador turns out to be a small parasitic creature that inhabits host bodies. Introducing the Trill, though with...
That's the synopsis?
Which
That's
is
literally the
also
synopsis.
a horrible synopsis for the Trill. Like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there are no good, like, unless I truly just read like the 12 paragraph synopsis that's in Memory Alpha, none of these are great. But introduction of the Trill, despite bad foreheads. I didn't love the actor that played the first Odin before Odin was moved into Riker. He seemed a little cheeseball, 80s-ish. But it was a Bev story. I hate that they gave it to her while the actress was so pregnant, because it was like, let's give Bev an entire episode, but only shoot her from the boob up. So that was a lot. But great story. I enjoyed the episode. I don't have a lot of points to correct it, other than perhaps giving her some better dialogue around not being able to keep up with the changes versus potentially making it look like Bev just couldn't hang because she was a girl now.
Yeah.
They delivered a safe ending, and I have trouble respecting it. It very, I think the difference between TNG and the TOS is that TOS, like when they made a decision to confront a social issue, they confronted it. And I think TNG measured what they would confront against ratings and other concerns, and
Berman.
I think ratings and and so it's this one, and also I think The Outcast is the other one where they sort of went real safe with the ending, and in doing so in both episodes they sort of miss capturing their spot in the lexicon of being first to go through the wall on something and really committing to it. They miss their opportunity to actually make a statement. They miss their Ellen opportunity or their Murphy Brown opportunity. And they had it in their hands, and they didn't do it.
They fumbled it.
I think that's really, I think it's one of the lamest, most disappointing things about this episode. Otherwise, I liked it, but
they fixed on DS9, but it would have been nice if it happened, earlier.
They kind of fixed it on. They sort of. They still. As well, and if I don't know how many of you have watched the documentary "What We Left Behind," and they even gave themselves a kind of, sort of, Ira Stephen Bear even said we could have done better. On DS9, we kind of hedged around. But I will say that what I was going to say to Krista too. Those two episodes will forever be better because of what the actor said afterwards. Of you know what? Because Gates and everybody said no, we wanted to make it known that it wasn't because she was a woman. It was because it was this huge change, and that's how she acted it. At least in her head, that's how she saw it. And Jonathan Frakes, the same thing. And I know we've brought it up many times about how he went up to bat for it being a male actor that played in The Offspring. And so it drove home the fact of, this is not because it's a woman or it's a man or anything like that. Jonathan wanted to say hey, this is the same either way. So I would fully agree that was, I've always said Rick Berman is the biggest villain in Star Trek. So I stand firm with that. But I still absolutely love the episode. I do. It is always funny because it seems like every time we have a new alien, they always get that what's that female
unibrow
birth control thing? No, it's that
get an IUD on their forehead.
Yeah, the IUD.
IUD.
They all get the IUD on the forehead first, and then they find, because the Bajorans had it too. The Bajorans originally had the nose ridges and then also had that IUD on the forehead. So it's that's their go-to before they actually refine any of the aliens. So it is kind of funny that they managed to do that, and I love the episode. I think it's a good one.
We can appreciate the consistency with the IUDs.
Also, if we were to change anything, wouldn't everybody agree? I'd kind of like to know if Riker remembers anything. Is that something that is in his consciousness, or was he just a total blackout during the entire thing?
But it is another point in the column for those who are saying that Will and Deanna are polyamorous.
Right. And they could have, another thing that could have been incorporated, and, you're through the wall.
Much huger thing for Riker than Beverly, when you think about it, that never gets revisited, that he had another consciousness inside him.
Right.
There's been an episode about that.
Also, let's also point out that Adira is apparently not Adira. I'm sorry. Adira.
Yeah.
because they're the ones that got the human that got put with the joint.
Mhm.
That was like the whole
Yes.
thing of like that was the first time. It wasn't the first time. That look at Riker. I mean, it's a
Maybe
more
it's the
permanent
first time it
but-
stuck.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time
Right.
it actually took. All right, people, show me your thumbs. We're so close. The host.
I wish they did
Um,
more with like. I mean, it's been said like they. I wish they did more with saying
You try, Matt.
it's not because. Never mind.
What happened?
But I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it'll come back. I promise. Episode.
No, Ken was saying something, and I lost my train of thought. So let's just
It's
move on.
Do we have a blame Ken banner? Episode 24. The
We should use that a
Mind's
lot.
we would. The Mind's Eye. The Romulans capture and brainwash Geordi, this time spelled correctly, using him in their plan to foment rebellion on a Klingon outpost. So again, a really bad descriptor of the episode where Geordi gets captured by the Romulans, brainwashed, is trying to kill the ambassador. He almost succeeds in shooting him in the cargo bay. We have a really interesting ambassador that likes to eat a large amount of food in his quarters every night, apparently, and then gives Geordi weird instructions on how to do things with his Romulan enhanced visor. I'm kind of a sideways on this one, but I'm curious. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't particularly like it.
It's the Romulan brainwashing thing seems to get overdone in TNG a lot. Like there's all this like, oh, it's always somebody on the flagship that we're gonna get and we're gonna abuse them and then we're gonna set them loose and then hope for the best and like I don't know, it gets old after a while, you know.
And Geordi in
that-
particular is the one
Yeah.
who seems to get. I mean, in generations too, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Something
poor
about that
guy, he
visor.
already can't see. Like, ugh.
All right, guys, we're
Please.
super close. We're super close to landing this. What do we think about the Mind's Eye? I'm a sideways.
Man, sideways is good.
I don't hate it, but it's kind of a meh. Stan, do you want to throw a vote in, or are you Waltering? I think he's Waltering. And it wouldn't matter because whatever his vote was would get wiped out by all those neutrals.
Oopsie.
Wait, that
Oopsie.
means that we were all in the neutral zone.
Uh,
Oh my God.
So bad it was good.
we're lurking.
All right, Matt.
Chosen to lurk.
And the rest of the time, we're just in the Twilight Zone. Oh, look at that with your little
Matt.
Romulan ship.
You got some bonus points, but I'll tell you how many when we're done.
Stan, where
Stan.
are you?
One eyes in the dark. Stan, show me your thumb for the Mind's Eye.
Side.
That was it was
We're
unanimous.
neutral zone.
We're all in the neutral zone.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay. In theory, while Picard navigates the Enterprise through an unstable, why is Siri talking? Stop it. What are you doing? In theory, while Picard navigates the Enterprise through an unstable region of space, Data tries to fathom the amorous advances of a crewmate. Not at all what the episode's about. This is the one where people are falling through shit, including the floor. Remember the lady who was walking down the hallway?
Yeah.
That's all anyone ever remembers from this episode. Not the wonderful Michelle Scarabelli from Alienation, who played Lieutenant whoever Data wanted to bang. It was lovely watching Data attempt to fall in love with someone, but I feel like it was like it felt like a diss to Tasha Yar, in my opinion. But thoughts? Feelings?
These are very specific flowers. Riker suggested them because they worked for him.
They worked for him in the past.
It was just gold. The whole thing was just gold. Just so bad.
Michelle, the guest actress, played off of Brent really well, so I have to give
Yeah.
her credit for that. For what is a clumsily written episode, she did fantastic work with what she was given.
I like
Also,
it.
you could. I appreciate a thoroughly trashed stateroom, like just a fucking slob.
Why did
Yes.
she get the huge room? Like Data doesn't
That
even
never
get
made
it.
any sense.
He's second officer, and he gets like a little hovel with no windows.
Yeah, they always gave.
I'm not familiar with the actor, but like I always felt that they like plucked her right out of an '80s rom-com and then like stuck her into on the Enterprise, which I think was perfect for the episode. I think it's kind of hilarious. And the thing that makes it for me is like the scene at the end where like Data just like picks up Spot and like starts petting him and just is like completely blank, has no idea what just happened, and it's very, very tragic for Data as a character. So I like it.
I have to completely agree with that, and I really do love her as an actress in this because there's so many like moments and beats that could have gone so bad, and she handles it so well in that like awkward, haha, realistic way. I don't know. There was just something so endearing about her, and I almost wish we would have seen her like later at some point. I think it would have been fun if she had, I don't know, somehow. But yeah,
I don't buy for a second that she's a security officer, but
What was great was that in Alienation, she played an alien in contemporary Los Angeles. Like, so ship crashes, lots of aliens are introduced just to the population, and she's sort of this fish out of water. So like popping her into the Enterprise as just a crew member who's falling in love with an android, the actress clearly was accustomed to playing a science fiction character in a weird scenario that she was good at not standing out in an environment where most actors would just stick out.
I will also say, Benji, to your point, what if she was a science or a security officer, but in that like Cerritos, we're gonna make sure the emotional security of the crew type of way, rather than, and that could establish that not all security is there to blow things up, even from back in TNG.
although they were working on like a torpedo, weren't they?
No, she's still smart enough to do it.
To light up the nebula. She was working on a torpedo to light up a nebula, not to blow things up. In theory, thoughts, feelings? Show me your thumbs.
I don't remember it very much, honestly. So I'm gonna have to give it a sideways.
Okay. And guys, we made it. Redemption Part 1. A power struggle within the High Council threatens the Klingon Empire, forcing Worf to choose between continuing his service on the Enterprise or returning to his people. This brings back his brother Kurn. This brings back Gowron. This brings back... Not Gowron. Gowron's dead. No, Gowron. Yeah.
Gowron,
I was thinking of Duras. Sorry. Brings back Gowron. Gives us a split second of, oh my God, is that Tasha? No, it's her daughter. Oh, and it brings back the Duras sisters.
I'm very pro Duras sisters for anything. I love them.
It's
They did nothing wrong.
It's the boobs.
The boob arm.
How many episodes had there been that sort of hinted at her before that? 3? Where she was in
One.
shadow?
Just
One?
in theory.
Only one?
Boobs.
No, not in
Oh.
theory. In The Mind's Eye. She was in shadow, and it wasn't actually her, but it was Janice's voice.
Really? I thought it was more than one. So it was only one, huh? Wow. Okay.
Thoughts, feelings, thumbs.
Thumbs up.
I'm with Michelle.
Redemption.
I'm not a huge fan of Klingon.
Yeah, Redemption Part 1. I'm a thumb sideways.
Well,
Where's everyone else? Side, up, side, up. It's a sideways. All right, people, we landed. Season 4, we did it.
The starship has landed.
Only 23 minutes over.
Huzzah! Final thoughts on the 4th season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Final thoughts on 32 years ago.
the season that Riker got his groove.
I think this was the season that started putting Star Trek on the map again. I think with Star Trek, with The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, it got an awful lot of press. It was like everyone was really focused on it. I think it even got the Time magazine cover and a bunch of other things. So this was the time where all eyes were on Star Trek: The Next Generation as we went into season 4. And I think for the most part, they did a good job with the episodes. I think that if season 4 would have been bad or mediocre, I think we would not have gotten much more Star Trek. And I think it probably was, although I don't know for sure, but it probably was the success of the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 that really made them say, let's try another show and let's go for Deep Space Nine.
Benji?
Great. It's like mostly up, so it's a solid ass season.
Maddie?
I mean, it's definitely one of the strongest seasons of Star Trek. I mean, when you go through, some of the greats of all-time episodes. So I think to Ken's point, that it absolutely helped save the franchise and really set the tone for, hey, we can have this diverse array of things going on and these different threads we're pulling from. And look at how many things ended up in Deep Space Nine from season 4. All of Worf and more of Lwaxana and a lot of these things that kind of laid the foundation. So no, definitely thumbs up. Definitely happy with it.
Krista? Do you want a countdown clock?
No, thank you, smartass.
I just want you to note how much time everybody took with their final thoughts and aim for something.
I want you to note. Please note that I did not interrupt and then lose my thought as someone who loses his thought. So,
Yes.
yeah, I liked the episodes. I liked the season. I think there were maybe a couple duds, but generally it was enjoyable. The entire thing. There was something worthwhile all the way through. And scene.
Lovely. Trevor, close us out and give us the ranking.
It's my turn. This felt like everybody says season 3 is when things really took off for TNG, and I don't disagree that there are some fantastic episodes, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. But season 4 felt like the writers were really in their groove and knew these characters well, and the actors knew these characters well, and it was just sort of lightning in a bottle, and everybody was in sync. In terms of our scoring, this is the highest ranked season so far. We gave it 17 positives or thumbs ups. 7 neutrals and only 2 stinkers, which is huge for us because we're a finicky group. In terms of the rest of the scorecard, there were 4 Bev alerts, there were 3 problematic gay alerts, and I issued 100 bonus points to Michelle for something that I liked, and I forgot to write down why. I issued her another 1,000,000 bonus points for remembering the Marina story that I was also going to mention. So she got 1,100,000 bonus points this episode. I gave 5 bonus points to Benji for daring to dislike the drumhead, and I gave Matt 1.625 bonus points just because.
Yeah.
And those were the season 4 Salon Thumb Wars.
That's so creepy.
And as much as I love
so cool.
everyone and Star Trek generally, we will not be back next Thursday. Sorry, Benji, for this American-centric crew. It is Thanksgiving here in America. And so we shall not be saloning, but we will see everybody in 2 weeks for a to-be-determined topic that you can find more about at this channel and on Twitter. You can see everybody's doodads there. Follow us all on Twitter. I'm at OnlyStans85. Be sure to smash that the subscribe button, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.